about some drifts.
Yes, yes.
I have a good story you'll want to put in about it. So
Okay, great.
I'm Doug Stokes, and for many years, beginning at the very beginning of that joint, I was the public relations guy. Different titles, different times, and for different companies that operated the place. I left about 5 or 6 years ago now to retire, and but I still, because of just being, I was a second employee in the place, so, and was there for the whole deal, including talking to the city of Irwindale after they had gone through some terrible trauma with the Raiders and the Raider crater. You may be too young to even remember that, but it was a real hassle. The Raiders were supposed to come to Irwindale and play, and there was a lot of strange things that went on, and unfortunately, they made the Irwindale City Council look like amateurs, I'm afraid. And that was our thing, was to try to not do that and to get a good place built, get it built right, which is what was done. It became, one of the best half miles in the country. The people that know best, not just from here, not just me, but I'll say it's one of the best half miles ever. And obviously, in other cases, as you know, it's a pretty damn good place for doing other stuff, like drifting. And remember, we had an X Games there. So it's a shame to see it now going to become an industrial center.
Can you tell me about when you were hired as part of the staff and when you found out about the plans for Irwindale Speedway and what year that was?
94 or 5. Oh, when I first went to work for Irwindale, it was pretty early on. We just finished the LA vintage race that we did around City Hall and all that stuff. I think it was probably 94. And I knew the guys that were putting it together, and something that I really thought was a pretty good deal. I've always been interested in racetracks and design. I did a lot of racing on my own. Didn't win much, but I didn't get hurt either, which is good. But got to know the guys from there, and finally ended up, they said, okay, we need somebody here to, sweep up. And I was the second actual employee at the track. Ray Wilkins had come over from Saugus, which was going to close, and he became the general manager, and it was the two of us. I'm the PR guy. I don't know, title, vice president, whatever, but the PR guy. And we were in a little trailer, smaller than, a two-man trailer with a little restroom and a drawing of the track. That was it, a blueprint. Otherwise, and didn't even have computers at that time. We had telephone, and it went from there. So I was there for the for the gestation period and the birth, and subsequently spent a long time. There was a point at which I decided I wanted to do something else. Went to work as the general manager of a bookstore that sold books about cars. Subsequently came back. They asked me to come back, and then we went through a traumatic period where the ownership did a BK, a bankruptcy, and the another group that was already there, that was running the driving school, and the people that owned the actual property got together, and I went to work for them as the PR guy on that new group. Subsequently went through all that. They and at the end there was another group that owns it now that just bought the Bakersfield track, I think as a backup because this is going. And I worked for them for about 6 or 8 months and then retired with honors. They gave me a plaque. That's the end. Actually, in '95, when I was hired, the tracks were going away fast. Saugus was going, which is a great old track, but that was going. They needed something for the train lines or something. Ontario had been knocked down. Riverside was long gone at that point, and they're just. It was a very strange period, and it looked like this looked like a pretty good way to go, closer to Los Angeles, more room. And Saugus was a very tight deal, and the guys that got together with it, there were a number of developers from Pasadena area, and then Jim Williams, who was partners with Roger Penske in a couple of programs, a couple of different tracks, and who was a principal at Golden State Foods, put the deal together and said, let's do something at Irwindale. It became the 6th track in the city of Irwindale, if you can believe that. There were two other drag strips, another oval, and a go-kart track. The first ever purpose-built go-kart track was in Irwindale, called Go-Kart Raceway. So it was a natural, and we built it.
What was there on the property of Irwindale Speedway?
Oh, it was a purpose-built swap meet. It's called the Los Angeles International Marketplace, and they had electrical outlets, and you could drive your car up and have that. It never seemed to, and it was very nicely made. It never seemed to catch on. We went. I live in Duarte, not far. We went in a couple of times, and it was kind of. It was great, except I don't know. It just wasn't the right thing for there, and that let go in it. And they had paved an enormous amount of area, all the parking lot to the east of Speedway Drive. That was all in, and to the west, the north parking lot was already in. So it just was very propitious that was there. We did a lot of went through 2 different kinds of EIRs on the place. They've done half a dozen more for this new stuff, but originally that place was a rock quarry. The motto of the city, or the city of Irwindale, is Jardín de Roca, Garden of Rocks. That's the city. It's on the city's front lawn. It says that. And of course, all those rocks that came out of there built downtown Los Angeles. But the buildings they knocked down, they brought back. It was like strange, I guess. And all that debris went in there. It was an inert landfill. Very good compaction. We had to do some, a lot of checking around. The one thing you have to be careful with inert land or organic landfills is this stuff. There's actually, you know, you have all these gas checking devices, and you're looking for radon and all kinds of crazy stuff, and methane. But we did what we needed to do.
What were you doing from that period from 95
Basically,
to 99?
starting to develop a press list, designs, a logo. We didn't have anything. You know, they said, "Oh, it's good. What are we going to call it?" I guess Irwindale Speedway. Yeah, okay. So it's Los Angeles Speedway. So, no, you know, so it was that loose. We had some drawings. I had my friend Hector Cadamatore do some renderings just from. I'm going, well, I think it'll look like this and like that. At one point, the part of the thing was to build a half-mile track, which is there, and then build a quarter-mile dirt track inside, so you could do both. There's, you know, like Paris, where I'd worked prior. But the cooler heads prevailed, because if you had a dirt track inside of an oval track, you would soon have a dirt track, only one dirt track, because that clay is like building material. You throw wet clay on asphalt, it starts to look like this floor. It's flat as a board. So we got out of that. And then all the track designs and all that stuff we're working on. We had, you know, pretty blank sheet. Engineering drawings were a lot of as-built, as they call it, in that business. And it's like even the banking of the track, which is blended, they call it, is 6, 7.5, 9, 11 at the top, so that you have it makes it easier to be different places. That wasn't in the plan. However, Parnelli Jones, who just passed away 6 months ago, great, wonderful guy, Indy winner, and, you know, everybody knows that name. He came, got Jim Williams, got him on a private plane, took him to Tucson, where that track had been built with the blended banking, and he said, "You got to build it like this." And Jim Williams came back and changed the plans and made it like that. And that's why, as I say, you know the name Darrell Waltrip, great Hall of Fame NASCAR driver, just great guy. He's retired now, but one of the best of all time. He was at one of our races many years ago now, and I was standing with him down near turn 1, and he and a friend of his, and he turned to his friend, he said, "This is the best the best short track racing I've ever seen." And I got my little notebook like this, and I wrote it down. "This is the best short track racing I've ever seen. Darrell Waltrip." And it's noisy. I said, "Did you just say this?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And he was right. And that's what really, it's going to be a great loss for a lot of people here when that goes. Not just the drifters, but again, it's, you know, when you have a place that worked as well for drifting, which is amazing, the way it was set up, the suites out on the half mile, the inner part, and all that stuff. Dwight Tanaka from Long Beach put those all up, and his son ended up racing in there. But we were like, speaking of Long Beach, they FIA made them build new crash walls. They had used stuff that was almost like regular K barriers to begin with, and they had to use these FIA ones, which are that tall and flat. They're flat wall. They had a bunch of the ones that were not tall enough. They're still flat wall. We got all those from Jim McAlian. I mean, I'm sure we had to pay for them, but luckily that we were able to use those on the drag strip and stuff. So, and there's what's funny is all these other racetracks have lived and died, and you got a racetrack that isn't a racetrack. Long Beach, 50.
Yeah.
50 years. I was on Bill Simpson's crew on that first race. Well, they were for Formula 5000 cars. We had a car from Argentina called a Berta. And he was nice enough to break on Saturday so we could watch the race. But Simpson made helmets and stuff, but he did a little bit of driving as well. But I was there that first race, and it was amazing to see where, that whole thing. And the way it's continued as long as it has is just astonishing to me.
You mentioned the drag strip.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Can you tell me about what was that always planned in the design?
No, we there wasn't. It was never in the plan at all. We found that drag strip. I mean, it's funny. It was never in the original plan, and the size of the lot that's on, you couldn't run a quarter-mile track anyway. There's just not enough runoff. NHRA requires a half mile for a quarter-mile drag strip. You have to have a half-mile shut-off. The shut-off at Irwindale for the eighth mile has a little kink in it, if you've done it, but it works fine. And it's been a pretty safe track with good cars. But that was just part of the parking lot. It was just, we just moved the fence on the parking lot up, poured a concrete launch pad, and it's something. Wally Parks, who started, has passed away a long time ago now, but the guy was the father of NHRA and stuff. They called their trophy a Wally, by the way. He's the one who said he thought the quarter mile was a little too long for a lot of things. Remember, now the top fuel guys are only going 1,000 feet. They're not going 1320 anymore. So an eighth, everybody goes, oh, it's kind of short. But it was really great. You have to be smart. You have to know how to launch. You have to know how to watch the light and stuff. And a lot of guys practicing on the eighth mile were much better on the quarter mile when they got out to the pro categories. We had a lot of very well-known guys come over and rent that joint during the week, including some of the Forest guys and nightclub, to get that practice that you can't get with those toy ones that you can have at home. But the drag strip became, and it still is, they had their last event last Sunday, and it was wall to wall. There wasn't any place to go. The drag strip took a lot of guys off the streets and stuff. Rivergrade Road, which runs parallel to 605, used to be a drag strip every night almost, because there's not a lot of cross traffic on it. But Irwindale, because it was relatively inexpensive, and your friends could come and watch, and all that stuff. We still have these street takeover deals, which are a shame. Irwindale put in this box area to try to alleviate that. Unfortunately, there's always people that are going to do stuff for crazy stuff, but by and large, the drag strip's going to be missed every bit as much as the oval track, every bit as much as the drift, the house of drift. We get it. Every bit is all the different things. The movie people, you turn on television, you see, and I go, oh, there's my track, They shot feature films all kinds of songs. We had one time they did the DARPA guys were there. These they were like independent drop machines. The federal guys, the Army, had this contest for all the schools and stuff, or the engineering schools. And we had a couple there that weren't working real good. They would drive, and they had them out in the middle of the oval track, and they're driving. They put barricades and stuff, and these things would go like that. Look at the barricade and go right into the wall. It's like these, Waymo and all those cars that I ain't riding in one. But it was, and all kinds of other stuff that went on there. We did a lot, and I hope they're still doing it, but county fire used to come in and train their guys, especially on the tillers, the hook and ladders and stuff. And they would mark out a little thing. Highway Patrol tested cars. The first time anybody ever tested, now everybody's got an SUV, all the deals. The first Ford SUVs were tested on that lot. They had this curbing thing, and they'd go and drive them over the curb and see if they would fall apart, all kinds of things. We've had large gatherings that we couldn't talk about of FBI type characters when they're going to do one of those sweep things, and they go into a neighborhood and just take it. That's been a place to gather. So there's all kinds of other things that have gone on there with, and that's going to be missed as well. And as I say, it's with the TMZ, the 30-mile zone in Hollywood. That's where the name TMC comes from. 30 miles from a central point in Hollywood. If you're shooting a movie, a union deal, if you're beyond that, you have to have all kinds of other crazy stuff. You have to put people up for overnight, all kinds of stuff. If you're inside the TMZ, you don't, and we were inside of it, so that made a big difference. So, and it still would, but it's not anymore. They're going to find another place.
Can you talk about the different motorsport activities that happen at Irwindale Speedway?
Not everything. Hey, by the way, we had some great bicycle criterions. Real bicycles, these guys running around that half mile, they're going 60 miles an hour. And bicycles, that Peloton would come by, and it was like, it'd take your breath away. It was amazing. It did all kinds of things, including, the X Games and things like that. We have set up a number of times for karts. We've put in a dirt second for the, not motocross, what's it called? Anyway, the rallycross and those sorts of things. So it's been very multi-purposed. Also, but remember, there's been all the time, there's always been a stock car driving school so that you can, people came out and learned it, got some grip on it. We did a number of I don't know if they're still doing them, but Chrysler had a program where they troubleshooting contests for young guys and people from the dealerships, and we did those. And as I say, a lot of commercials and that sort of thing. We actually had a CHP graduation on the premises one time with about I don't know, a lot. And then and Sheriff used it a lot too. They would do all kinds of things. They would drag bodies across. Seriously, they train a guy, how to get somebody if they're shot, and you get them back to your car and stuff. fascinating. We even had a riding school for motorcycles. This guy, Keith Code, would teach you how to do a wheelie. He had bikes that had a little, like, wasn't quite it was a wheel that could feel what was going on. You didn't really lean on it. Tom Cruise was there one day learning how to do wheelies on a damn motorcycle. So it's been multi-purpose, and there's a lot of good memories and a lot of fun. And some memories where we've had some, other circumstance to racetrack,
Were you part of that meeting where they approached you about having drifting happening at Irwindale?
Oh, yeah. There wasn't much of a meeting. It was two guys out in the parking lot. And then the guys from up north, Pfeiffer and God knows, all those cats. No, it was two guys come in and said, we want to do drifting. And I said, let me talk to DeFazio about it. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. And they showed up with the stuff, and all of a sudden we're doing it. And then that Falken thing was the last time the next step was to go inside. I can tell you the Falken but that was when I'm thinking about it. That was when I actually got the idea. This is pretty cool. This is good. I know it was really big in Japan and stuff. In fact, I met the Drift King guy and all that stuff. But that day for the Falken thing, it was like, I think the gates opened at 9 or something. But I couldn't hardly get in. I came at 7:30, hardly drive in. It was completely filled with people. So it was like the starting of one of those, marathons. There's a whole bunch of people. I'm ready to go. And so, they didn't shoot a gun, but it was almost like doing that. They open up the ticket booths, and this land rush comes across. And in the middle of it, a young woman trips and falls and splits her knee about from her ankle all the way up. I mean, I got over. They called me on the radio, and they called the medics at the same time. So I'm over there, and they got her. They got her into the unit, and they're stemmed the blood and all that, and had her. She was bandaged up like crazy, and taped, and got it look like a war zone. And so the paramedics are saying, look, we're not going to call an ambulance for you. It's not that bad. But you need to go get some stitches. Here's a list. We had already had lists ready. Here's a list of where the urgent care joints are. You need stitches for this. It's not going to just heal up like a little nick. And she's looking at it. She says, oh. You know what? She said, look, we came all the way from Sacramento to see this drifting. We heard about it. I'll go later on. It's not bleeding now, right? They said, no, you should really get stitches. No. And I went, holy, this is pretty strong stuff. Someone's take their leg off, and they're not interested in getting it fixed. They want to see the drifting. And as I said earlier, the quality of the cars that the people drive to drifting and all that, it was a whole revelation for a lot of us. Not on the track. I mean, the ones, the quality and the style of the machinery. So we learned pretty quickly that D1 was a pretty good deal. And of course, it was fascinating to see. One of the first ones, before we went into the track,
on the parking
they
lot.
did it on the parking lot. Were you there the day it rained?
Yes.
I said, okay, because there's all those, abutments and poles and lights and stuff. I said, okay, the first guy that really wrecks into one of those, it's over.
Yes.
And it was about an hour or two,
Yeah.
or maybe 3, and I had to go out and they're going, we're packing to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where we got the idea, saying, look, this could run, Thursday afternoons. We didn't know it was going to be as big as D1,
Yeah.
but this could run, these guys will come out Thursday or Sunday when we're not running and run on the damn infield. You don't have to be up on the oval track.
Yeah.
And even if nobody's there, I mean, we did bicycle races with just the families there.
Yeah.
But if you have control of that inner field, you got gates and stuff, because you want to take people's money to look at it.
Yeah.
Parking lot isn't, and that's, that's how it got to go down on the big track.
What do you remember from that first D1 event?
Oh, just the honestly, the crowd, they all knew what was going on. I mean, it wasn't, nobody was there that wasn't already living this. It was very respectful, very, well, I'm sure you were probably there, but it was amazing. And I got to tell you, as far as crowd goes, I see guys walk out of their way to throw their hot dog wrapper away. That crowd was more respectful of the place. Everybody, not to say that the regular crowds were terrible, but the difference was palpable to me. They that place hardly had to sweep up after. It was amazing. I mean, the track had a lot of marks on it and stuff, but the grandstands, normally you went with backpack blowers and blew it all down to one end. And I never heard those things run. So, as I say, it was, and as it progressed, I think it got better and better. Everybody seemed to really enjoy it, and the track worked, I think, pretty good for drifting. I mean, it was a good view. I don't know if there's probably better seats than others, or upper, lower, I don't know. But from the press box when I was up there, it was a pretty good show. The other thing I want to point is somebody asked me about, I've been interested in the demographics of the people who go to the races. And one of the ways I find out about it is as soon as, when it's really going good, go out and walk around in the parking lot, see what kind of cars they're driving. If they're, you go to a Lucas off-road race, it's all trucks, and maybe they buy a few things. They buy some suspension stuff. But if you go out in a drift thing, everybody's got the right tire, everybody's got the right suspension parts, they got bride seats sitting in the car, the whole thing. So the demo thing is good too.
Do you recall selling out?
Oh, sure. Well, remember, we didn't sell the tickets.
Oh.
So, but we knew what their numbers were. I mean, we were watching. And of course, you got fire department capacities and that sort of thing. We never fudged them. There were, we did, but all the D1s, as far as I know, talking to those guys, Jim Lau, who now works for SEMA, by the way, and those guys all were pretty happy with their numbers. And the other guys that were real happy, obviously the tire guys, but I mean, the concessions were the pit area with all the bride seats and God knows what, all that stuff. That was a very popular place. I mean, it was like a state fair in there. So, I enjoyed coming to the D1 things. I had to get there early, of course, so I could find a parking spot. Actually, I had my wife drop me off one time so I wouldn't have to park a car in there. It was like that. And of course, there's other things. The Moon Eyes, that they just had the last one of those. The first one we had, we didn't know what it was going to do. I knew a couple of the guys from Moon, and they always have pretty good crowds down at their shop. But no one knew Moon Eyes was going to be as just absolute amazing group, and cool cars, a whole different vibe to it, and other things. Even the X Games, that was a whole different thing. They let me put the medals on a couple of the guys in a couple of the events, so that was kind of fun. I didn't kiss them. What makes Irwindale Speedway unique? It's hard to tell me because it's so ingrained in me. It's unique in that it was built and it ended up with a lot of multi-purposes, a lot of things that went on outside of just the original plan, which was a little oval track, no drag strip, no drifting. We didn't know what the hell drifting was then. So, and all the other things that you can do there, the movie shoots. They did a bunch of rock videos and stuff, all kinds of things. New car introductions, motorcycle Harley, brought everybody from across the country and people from Europe and Asia. The first time anybody saw a V-Rod, which was their hot rod Harley, was at Irwindale, and a number of other things like that. So it just was a good place to do that. And like a lot of the racetracks in Southern California, the land got to be too valuable for other purposes, and you end up, it used to be racetracks were built way the hell and gone out. Riverside, I raced there. I lived out this way. I lived in Glendale and would go all the way to Riverside to race or work on cars. Now they it would bring some a little closer to the city, and it really works well, except unfortunately the rest of the urban spread,
Do you think that Irwindale Speedway is the last of its kind where there's a racetrack in the middle of the city?
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. It would be, it gets more and more difficult as time goes by. Nobody thought, building new racetracks out anywhere near, I showed you this book about where they raced. And I told you there was 179 racetracks in Southern California that show up in this book going back to 1900. There's only 15 of them left, and they're spread around. It gets more and more difficult all the time. So I say California Speedway or Auto Club now, that's going to be some sort of a distribution center, I guess. I don't know. And where Irwindale is, I've seen the plans. It's a office complex, industrial offices and that sort of stuff. The funny thing is they're going to use the road that went in. When you get on the road, it says Speedway Drive. We named it and had to pay whatever it cost to do that. And when we opened, the mailbox was right up front, right up by the front street. We'd have to walk up or drive a car 1,500 feet to get to the thing. So I said, you know what? In fact, the office building was built with with a slot in the door and stuff. And I looked at a map of Irwindale, and I could look across the 605, and where our office was right about 500. And 500's a good name in car stuff for the Indy 500, the Daytona 500. So I said, why don't we call it 500 Speedway Drive and say this is where the mail goes? And so we took that mailbox down that was down in the up by the front door, at the front by the road. Guess what? That was a federal offense. You can't move a mailbox. They ended up, I don't think, they kidded me about, the handcuffs and stuff. But for about I don't know how long, 6 weeks, 5 weeks, they wouldn't deliver mail to 500 Speedway Drive, which is what until we got all the federal stuff, we had to go, and there was no mailbox out in front. I had to go to Baldwin Park every morning and go over and say, I'd like my mail, please. Oh, here's your mail. So we had some fun with that. There's a lot of stories with that joint.
What do you feel is your greatest accomplishment while you were working at Irwindale Speedway?
I don't know. Just keep. We had some. We got good publicity for it. There were a couple of times when we had some pretty traumatic occurrences. Opening night on the oval track and like that. It was. You expect. It's funny. We used to talk about you think maybe what if everybody flushes all the toilets at the same time, or something like that. It was difficult to have a really, that opening night. Everybody was good about it. We had a problem because of we had a fatality, right, in practice. 15 minutes after the first practice started, a guy tipped a sprint car over, and it was a basal skull fracture. It was almost instantaneous. It took a long time to even get that information because he was taken to Keiichi, and I had to go over, and you have to be an officer of the company to get in there. So the concern was that his family wasn't there. Somehow they left. Notification, all that stuff was not good. And the concern was announcing and how you did it. And obviously it was even more than that. Just, I wish we didn't have to worry about that. But we got through it, but it was not as, it was certainly a difficult first night. We learned how to, I guess you learn some things, but you're never quite ready for that. But other than that, everything seemed to, we had a few other problems over the years, and we made a lot of modifications to the track. The off-ramp to get off the track tended to be a little too abrupt, and we had to, the splitter had to be, got bigger and bigger with all this styrofoam and all this stuff. We finally ended up curving a new track in. The people from Lucas, we were with Lucas at that time, helped us with that. When we reopened, they said, we'll get it fixed, let us know, that sort of thing. But there were things that, working on as it went along. The thing that was the steadiest, I guess, was the lighting. That Musco lighting was still just the best. I mean, you see these Formula One races, that's all Musco. It comes from Muscatine, Iowa. I mean, it's as good as it gets. And those things still, they were all pre-focused and all that. They're still good, you know. But they're gonna, I'm sure someone will use them. I know the grandstands are gonna go up to Bakersfield. And I don't know if the lights will go there, but the lights will probably, they're 25 years old, and but I don't know if they aren't still, you know, valuable. I don't know.
What will you miss most once Irwindale Speedway closes?
The people, the fans. We had fans that were there, you know, you got to know their names. You knew where they were going to be sitting. You started to know their kids and stuff. I used to, every Saturday, I'd go into the souvenir stand and get a new hat, new Irwindale hat. And when the races were over, the stock car races, they opened the pits to the fans, which is cool, you know. And I'd always be over there talking to the guys, getting notes for the, you know, the media stuff. And on the way back to my car, back around, I'd always come across somebody with a little toddler kid or something. And I'd take my hat off and give it to him. It's brand new. I got it just this afternoon to the family. But that got to be a kind of a little fun tradition that no one else knew about, stealing hats and giving to kids. But no, there was the racers, the drivers. I still see a couple of them. One of the guys who raced stock cars there, really great guys, is a manager at Home Depot. And I live in a little old farmhouse in Dwarty that needs a lot of Home Depot, believe me. And so every time I go over there, I'm looking, where is he? About every other time I run across him. But we needed when they were doing siding on our house years ago, and the guy needed siding instead of 8-foot, he needed 16-foot pieces, and they didn't have any. So I called up my friend that's over there, and I said, you know, we need 16-foot pieces of this particular kind. And about 2 hours later, he says, we got them. We got them from another store. They're over here. So knowing some of the racers was a good thing. And that's part of it. Same thing with the press guys. We had a regular group upstairs. We were lucky enough to have a real good coverage from the Tribune, not as much from the Times, but, you know, and the TV crews would come out from every few weeks and do some shots and stuff. You've seen it. So I miss the whole thing, but mostly the people, the ticket taker people and all that. We had very little turnover, even in the concessions and stuff. Everybody liked being there.
Do you have any final thoughts about Irwindale closing?
Just thank you for having me here. As I say, a lot of people are going to miss that place. And it's no one's fault that it's going. It's the tides of the time, and it's I don't know. It it would be nice to keep it. The oval track is one thing. The drag strip and the burnout box, that makes me more concerned because it was a good place for the stock car guys. Don't go out and drive their stock cars on the street, or the bike guys or any of that. The Legends cars or we did a lot of destruction derbies and all that. You don't do that on the street, at least not intentionally. But the drag strip really became a place where people could have some fun with their car, and you could be watching and having a great time, as a hero. I don't know if you've been there, but our return road was right up in front of the grandstands. So when you're coming back, your car's closer to the fans in the stands than it is when it's on the strip, and it's driver's side, so that it was great. People really I think I don't know if we took a lot of people off the street, but I know Irwindale IPD said very little activity on these things. They saw some good changes, so that's not a good thing. But unfortunately, commerce is, and it's like that, as I say, with all the the land area. We keep moving. You move tracks further out, and everything moves to them, except they can't. I don't know. Sorry.
It's okay. And you're wearing a pin.
I have my
share with us?
little Irwindale. These were made before the track was built. You can see the double tree, the two tracks inside. We had them. There was a SEMA show up in Sacramento at the time, and we had a booth, but nothing else. A drawing of the track, and we got a big Jim Sullivan made us a bunch of pins. So I still have one. Other than that, I think I have a hat.
It's great. Hat you didn't give away.
But I tell you, Saturday, the 21st, I'm going to know when it goes because I live north of there in Duarte, and I'm sure they're going to have a big fireworks shoot at the end, and my dog will let me know because he can hear it better than I can, and he'll go run to the back end of the house, and he'll go open the bathroom window or one of the kitchen windows, so I'll know when it's done. But I don't have a lot of bandwidth to go stand around there all that time. I was there for a long time before. Oh, we even set records. I see the Rose Parade's coming, right? We set a drag racing record with a Rose Parade float one time, and we had a lap record with one on the oval track. So, and other fun stuff like that.
Do you remember the 8th mile time on the Rose
Yeah.
float?
I appreciate you guys
Right.
letting me talk about the place. It's,
It's been our absolute pleasure to have
Indeed.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.